Hi, Maddie and Eli. Daddy here. I hope you guys are still well and healthy and happy. So, as promised a few vlogs ago, this is my shameless name dropping video, interwoven with some of the usual unbelievable stories. I was thinking about this and I decided it's probably easier to split this into a couple of videos because otherwise I'll be going on and on and on for ages. So, this is part one. Not in any particular order. I prefer to take more of a kind of scattergun approach. So, one thing I remember when I was at the Royal College of Music, I did a masterclass with the great tenor Philip Langridge, and in the Britain Theatre, and I was singing, I think, Kleinsack aria from Tales of Hoffmann, and he was a wonderful teacher and a fabulous guy and very entertaining. And during the masterclass, I asked him, "Why don't you ever sing any of this kind of rep?" And he looked at me and just went, "I wouldn't touch this stuff with a barge pole," which I thought was quite funny. But anyway, the story is that about 6 or 7 years after I left college, we're now talking about 2003 or 4, I was doing one of these interim jobs that a lot of musicians do in between big jobs. And I was a gas and electric meter reader for a rather dubious company, shall we say, called AccuRead. Anyway, and one part of my route on that day was all the streets around Notting Hill and all the back roads and all the cul-de-sacs and all the strange circular streets that go round and then link up back. And so if you're doing that job, you have a handheld little, it's not a computer, it's called a handy logger, and you bring up the address and it tells you where the meter's located, if it's like down the outside steps or wherever. And this was indoors, so I'm walking up to the front door, about to ring the bell, when the door opens, and it's Philip Langridge about to come out to put his rubbish out. He sees me but doesn't recognise me. But of course I recognise it because I was blonde at college and a lot thinner. But I recognise him instantly and say, "Oh my gosh, Philip Langridge." He looks at me as if I'm some kind of assassin with a name badge. But anyway, I explain what I'm doing. And before he'd let me go and continue on my job, he insisted that I come in for a cup of tea and sing a couple of songs while he accompanied on the piano. And his wife, Anne Murray, who's also a famous singer, was there. And we had a lovely hour or so before I had to go and continue my work as a meter reader. That didn't last very long. But anyway, like I said, it was a dubious company. But anyway, that was quite a sweet, if slightly crazy story. The next one, I would say, is also from the Royal College of Music days. And at Royal College of Music, I wasn't a first study singer. I didn't study piano, I didn't study conducting or organ, or any of the stuff really I do now. I was actually a composer. And one of my composition visiting professors was Sir Peter Maxwell Davies, who was at the time Keeper of the Queen's Music, which is a little bit like the Poet Laureate, but in music. And I loved Max. Max was a fantastic teacher, and we got on great. And there's some fabulous photos of us from college. And he loved my Requiem as well, which is on YouTube, which was recorded by the 20th Century Ensemble at the Royal College of Music. And anyway, so many years later, I'm talking about only about 5 years ago from now, so well over 15 years since I left college, so I hadn't seen him for over 15 years. He died, very sadly, and I had recorded a piano piece of his called Farewell to Stromness. It's actually one of his most famous pieces because it's more on the tonal and melodic side than some of his more uncompromising stuff. Anyway, after his death, this video just went insane and hundreds of people were commenting every day. And I was thinking, well, I can understand, Max has died, and people did love Max because he was very lovable. Tiny man, up to about here on me. Very, very sweet man. Great teacher. But after a while, it took a couple of years, I think, until I discovered his a kind of retrospective article that had been written about him and his final interview for The Guardian Unlimited, which is the website of the Guardian newspaper online. It's probably still there if you want to look. Where Max had basically done a retrospective and talked about his career and his life and blah, blah, blah. But he'd also been asked to recommend his favourite recordings of his own pieces. And what was so touching and I thought really sweet was that he'd recommended my recording of Farewell to Stromness, which is possibly his most famous piece, as his favourite recording of it. And this has been recorded by hundreds of people. So I thought that was really sweet. And of course the links in the article are in blue. You can click on them and I come up as in his article, which I thought was lovely. There's a little postscript to this story, which was bizarrely, when I had my EPOC injury, my leg issue, which I dealt with in a previous vlog, I was in, what was it? It was the hospital near Euston Station. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, it's a huge hospital near there. No, it's gone. Anyway, yeah, I think because they didn't have any other spare beds to put me in, I ended up on this ward, which was labelled oncology. And I was like, this has nothing to do with that. But I got talking to one of the nurses who happened to look like a relative of mine. And this nurse told me, he said that, and I was talking about Max, because I knew Max had died in that hospital. And he said Max was on this ward when he died, which I thought was an extraordinary coincidence, that I ended up there literally a year after he died, on that same ward, for an utterly bizarre leg injury. Just unbelievable, but completely true. So I better cut this short. More crazy stories later and more name dropping. I'll do a part 2 of this tomorrow. So until then, Daddy loves you and have a lovely day. Mwah.